This is our group's introduction to film theory, feminism, and this is our group's members. Here is the content. Part 1. The development of feminist film theory. The development of feminist film theory can be roughly divided into 3 stages. First stage, early stage. This stage was mainly dominated by criticism of the portrayal of women in films. Feminists began to focus on the stereotyping of women's roles in films. For example, women were often portrayed as weak, passive, dependent on men, or objectified and sexualized. Next stage, narrative criticism stage. In this stage, feminist film theory began to draw on the theoretical resources such as semiotics, ideological analysis, and psychoanalysis to explore in depth the narrative structure and viewing mechanism of films. Laura Mulvey's Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema is a representative work of this stage. She argues that the narrative structure of mainstream movies is often dominated by the male perspective, placing women in the position of objects in order to satisfy men's visual pleasure. And the later stage, in this stage, feminist film theory became more diversified and began to pay attention to the creative practices of female filmmakers, exploring the unique styles and modes of expression of women's films. At the same time, it also began to pay attention to the image and voice of women of different races, classes, and sexual orientations in the movies. Part 2. Important concepts in feminist film theory. Male gaze. Proposed by Laura Mulvey, it refers to the prevalence of male-dominated viewing in cinema, which objectifies and sexualizes women and places them in the position of objects to be viewed. Female subjectivity refers to the fact that women have independent consciousness, emotion, and action in cinema, and are no longer passive objects but autonomous subjects. Women's cinema. Cinema created by women filmmakers, often centered on women's perspectives and experiences, showing women's lives and emotions. And gender politics refers to the gender relations and power structures that are representative in cinema, and how cinema shapes and reflects notions of gender in society.
Significance of feminist film theories. 1. Expose gender bias in films. Through the analysis of film works, reveal gender bias and stereotypes in film, and criticize their negative impact on women. 2. Promote women's cinemas, encourage women filmmakers to create more films centered on women's perspective lives and experiences, and provide more opportunities of women to express themselves and have their voice heard. 3. Changing the way audience watch. Encourage audience to watch films more creative and reflect on gender roles and power relations in films.
We have found a very representative feminist film, which is the famous Legally Blonde. This movie is a typical feminist film that explores women's self-awakening. It breaks stereotypes, realizes women's self-worth and independence, and the protagonists also find their own confidence. Although it does not directly explore gender issues like some series films, director Robert Lokatic conveys positive female values to the audience in a lighthearted and humorous manner, encouraging women to break free from constraints and pursue their own self-worth. The above is our group's sharing. Thank you for watching.